So here we've got 5 dive watches that I recently purchased from AliExpress. And these are all pretty cheap dive watches because I've been looking for alternatives to this, the legendary Casio Duro. For as long as I can remember, that's just been the go-to choice basically for cheap dive watches. And I thought, surely by now there's got to be some other viable cheap alternatives too. And crucially, cheap alternatives that aren't just copies, right? Because loads of the cheap dive watches on AliExpress and even from some of the bigger brands like Invicta, loads of the best value choices are just, carbon copies of existing watches essentially. And that's one slight edge the Duro has always had. Might not be the best looking watch and it's also quite vanilla, but it is at least semi-original. And that's what I was kind of looking at here. All of these are pretty cheap. They're all like 100 quid-ish or below. And they're all, I think, at least like semi-original. They're all linked in the video description as well as discount codes if I can find any, which you'll probably need to take some of these down to a similar price as the Casio Duro. That watch isn't as cheap as it once was, and definitely not if you're from the UK. I think that one's about 80 quid on the Casio website. So some of these are actually significantly cheaper than that, albeit you can still get that Casio for like 55 quid-ish on grey market sites at the time of recording this. But yeah, let's get chopping these open and I'll let you know what I think, see if any of these might potentially be viable. Let's start with this one, which I know what it is because of the packaging. It says Bernie here. Now this is a brand I haven't really tried before, but this was one of the more distinct offerings out of this batch. Quite unusual, almost cartoonish design language with this. And this one has been recommended actually a few times via email from a bunch of different viewers. So I'll finally get my hands on it today. And how much did this set me back? It was £80 and 16 pence. And that included import fees. So yeah, bang on the same price as the Duro in the UK if you want to buy it officially at least. Not the worst brand name either, as some on AliExpress are pretty questionable. Here we go. You can get this on a bracelet as well, I think, but I went for the cheaper strap option to make the price more comparable. And this one's also got some other tricks. Now, this one's in the style of a compression diver, so it's got a dual crown setup there. And one of these should be that inner rotating bezel. There we go. Yeah, it's not terrible, not the smoothest I've felt, but not bad for the price, I guess. And to go along with that theme, how much water resistance are they advertising here? It says on the webpage 20 ATM. And this one, at least to my eyes, looks kind of like nothing else I've really looked at. It's got markers that appear to be like punched through from the back potentially, but they are at least somewhat 3D from the looks of it. And it's got unusual like stencil-like font, a bit space age, this whole design here. Now, as far as water resistance goes, I have bought myself a little pressure machine too. So I won't be totally taking some of these brands at their word as far as water performance goes. I'll be seeing if any of them blow up, at least up to 6 ATM, which is quite reasonable. But yeah, they're claiming 20 ATM here. What else have we got? The case material just says stainless steel. Doesn't specify 316L, although does look like 316L to me up close. It's supposedly powered by a Miyota 8215, and I can definitely feel that rotor there. It does have that display case back. And they're also claiming here a sapphire crystal too, and that may well be the case. It does look a little bit hazy there. Not too bad though. And what I will say is it does seem like everything's packed in quite tightly there because it all looks very close to the crystal, if you want to call it that. But overall, yeah, first impression's quite good on this. The band here is definitely better than the one that ships with the likes of the Casio Duro. It's got lots of lines here, gives a bit more breathability, and it's also fully integrated, as you can see. It goes right up into the lugs. So yeah, that is quite interesting. I'll quickly get the measurements of this one. 41.6 across, lug to lug 48.8, and it does look quite hefty still. 13.5, so it's no thinner than a bezeled dive watch. But yeah, overall for 80 quid, first impressions fairly good with this one actually. Certainly feels extremely weighty, and yeah, it does have a mechanical movement for the same price as the quartz in the Duro, although I suspect you may be more tempted to buy the Duro grey market. Next we'll go for, how about this one? Now I did have a quick look at the stickers on the opposite side of this box, as with all of them, just to try and figure out which one was which, and it does have my address on there as well, which is why it's flipped over. But to my knowledge, this should be one of the cheapest on this list. It is the least original, and you'll see why in a moment. Here we go, and this one in this tech-like packaging is from a brand I've never covered before. Queso? But yeah, not heard of this one before. Don't know if it's related to any other AliExpress brand, but this one cost me a mere 40 something? £46, yeah. So cheaper than the Duro, even on grey market sites, and it looked quite promising. Oh, and just like tech packaging, the outer sleeve doesn't want to move. Goodness me. There we go. And here is a quick look at it. Now, the reason I said it's the least original is because it looks like a hybrid of about 2 or 3 other existing dive watches from established brands. Now, you Super Watch nerds will have to let me know in the comments specifically which models this borrows from. But I think it was a Seiko and then maybe 1 or 2 others as well. And it is pretty similar to those, but there were a few things that were different. The hands were different, at least from the one I saw, and a couple of parts from the case were different too. Another interesting aspect with this one is it is quartz as well, just like the Duro. Really tempted to give that bezel a go. And the bezel feels really good, actually. If this £46 watch lines up better than a Seiko, I might have a chuckle. It kind of does. What are the advertising on this one? 200 meter water resistance rating, apparently. We'll put that to the test. It does have, again, a screw down crown like the last one. And it's also got a threaded case back, this time a solid case back. Again, they're claiming a sapphire crystal. Now, I'll definitely give this one a quick test, just to make sure, because it is so cheap. And again, yeah, it is saying 316L stainless steel. And yeah, it could well be 316L again, yeah. You never quite know because there's no easy way to tell, unfortunately, whether it's 316 or something like 304. The movement inside here is one I've never heard of. Langda 507, apparently. What I will say is it's very quiet. I've just held it up to my ear there. I can't hear a peep from it. So at least there's that. It's actually aligned relatively well as well. Doesn't seem to be too much recoil on that action. Now, it does have a lot of haziness on the crystal, and the anti-reflective coating almost adds to that problem a little bit. You can see that massive blue glare across the surface. It even says ceramic bezel here, and yeah, I think it is from the looks of this. That's pretty impressive for the money. But you guys in the comments will definitely have to let me know if you think this is a one-to-one clone of anything else. I know it is very similar to a couple of models, but my reverse image searches didn't bring up any results, and that's the most due diligence I can realistically do, because I mean, the number of watch models these days, it just goes on forever. Now, the case size, tricky to measure accurately with this one. Somewhere around 42 millimeters, but it depends where you measure. Bezel size, only 39.6. Does look smaller than an average 42. And lug to lug will surely attest to that. What have we got there? Only 47.2. It's also, as you might guess, very cool. It's a lot thinner than the last one, 11.3. Design aside, this is pretty well constructed for the money, I've got to say. And even the bracelet's good. Appears to be a fully solid link bracelet. Potentially solid end links there, but we'll find out in the full review. And we've got micro adjustments too with this double fold over clasp. So yeah, not much to complain about there for 46 quid. On to the next one, and we're going to go with a brand that kind of had me on a bit the other week, or at least one that looked original, but yeah, it turns out seconds after publishing realized it was a copy of something, and that is Parnis, which is I think what we've got in here. Yeah, the last Parnis I unboxed turned out to be a copy of like a super limited edition GLC that I'd never heard of, until ironically I published the video as I was watching another video, and then that watch popped up during the video. I mean, the chances must be astronomical. But yeah, discovered seconds after publishing it was a copy, which is a shame. So this one is a bit like the last one. It isn't a copy. They've instead just kind of nicked design elements from like 2 or 3 other watches and then done a bit of their own stuff in there as well. Let me in. Oh, let's have a look. So unlike the last one, this is clearly a dive style watch, not a minimalist Bauhaus style watch this time. And this is one that did receive a little bit of coverage on YouTube about 6 or 7 years ago, but then kind of fell off the radar. This was really before watches on YouTube were particularly popular. And it's generally considered one of the few more original designs Parnis has ever done. Now, it's not perfectly original. It's definitely got some borrowed elements again, like the last one. You can see there the Ploprof hands, I think they are. And it's obviously got that Seamaster-esque dial there as well. The wave pattern, albeit slightly different. And then it's got orange elements from some other watch as well, I think. But as an entire package, it is fairly unique. Now, there are some things I noticed straight away, for better or for worse with this one. Number one, that bezel was definitely worse than the last one. It's pretty tinny feeling, I have to say. Now, again, this watch, I mean, it wasn't exactly expensive. This one was $76.99 when I purchased, again, with a discount code. And comes with the really unusual strap here as well. So, it doesn't have any holes. It's got, yeah, nothing. And then you must slot it in here somehow. I'll work that one out for the full review. I mean, the quality is quite good actually on the strap. As for the dial, does have a pretty decent little pattern there. Looks quite good. Again, does have a fair amount of glare on that crystal, which is definitely something, again, I'm coming across more often. You know, tons of people pluck out these specs out of thin air saying, no, this other watch I can get sapphire for that price. And it often ends up kind of like this. Like, you might get the scratch performance, but boy, do you get a lot of haziness and glare, which is the only real downside with it. This one doesn't appear to have any AR coating at all. What specs does this one advertise? Yeah, sapphire crystal. Again, they're claiming 20 bar. Surely has, yeah, a screw down crown there, as well as that quite small, admittedly, screwed rear. They're also saying here this is a 316L steel case, and I'm pretty sure that is. And the bezel again there looks like it may be a pretty good material. Might be ceramic, maybe? It doesn't really say here on the listing, but certainly get that impression. And you can grab this one with a couple of different movements inside. I went with the Mingzhu 2813, which isn't the best automatic movement, but it is the cheaper of the two, which just brings it down to that Duro-like ballpark in terms of price. You can also get this with a Miyota 8215, which isn't a great movement anyway, so, you know, I didn't feel like I was really missing out on much. And this one visually looks beefier than the last two. I think it's mainly because that lug width, which is a peculiar 23 millimeters. As for the rest of the sizes, case is somewhere around 43.5 depending on where you measure, and then 43mm bezel, which is quite big, and lug to lug also quite expansive there, 51.8. Thickness is still reasonable though for an automatic with a bezel like this, 13.3. And yeah, there's a quick look at the dial on that one. Certainly is quite impressive macro detailing for a watch at this price. And while I don't normally like orange watches, I think perhaps when used in irresponsible amounts, it can kind of be pulled off relatively well like this. I have definitely seen another watch with those similar markers with the orange slices down the middle. But yeah, we still have two more to look at here. And first up is another dirt cheap one. Actually, this is the cheapest on the list. I thought it was the Chiasso, but no, it's this one, which I think is the North Edge. This one cost me a total of £40.89. And that is, you know, quite considerably cheaper than the Duro, which I never thought I'd be saying. Oh! There we go. Now, I covered my first North Edge watch the other day, and the results were a bit mixed, admittedly. That one was a carbon fiber digital watch, which was at least very cheap. This one is slightly more expensive, but looks more like a typical watch. And this one certainly has the Omega-like dial. And then the rest of it, to me at least, looks like a cartoon version of a Citizen ProMaster or something. You'll see here the case is remarkably squat. Very stubby looking thing. It's got a domed crystal as well on there, very lightly domed. And it's still got much more of that Omega-like copied dial surface. But there are definitely other elements on this that I personally haven't seen on other watches, or at least not in the exact same setup. Gosh, that crown is... There we go, it's finally engaged. That was not the most assuring feel. There we go, seems okay now. Almost has a Duro-like handset and marker set, this one. It does have a screw-down crown, albeit was pretty tricky to seat there. Now, I'll also be having a look at the luminescence in the full review, so go subscribe for that. I mean, it does have a functional bezel. It doesn't feel terrible. It feels okay. It does have a lot of back play, but the actual clicks feel okay. For a watch at 40 quid, that's quite something. The key thing as well that separates this one from the others is this one claims to be solar powered as well for 40 quid. And they're even saying 300 meters waterproof. Now, it does have that screwed crown, but the back here appears to just be kept in by 4 small screws. Here it is, the Triton, this is what they're calling it. But yeah, I haven't got equipment to be able to test up to 300, sadly, because the machines for that cost a fortune. But it would be embarrassing if this watch couldn't stack up to 6 bar pressure, which is significantly less. Case finishing, surprisingly good. Does feel like kind of industry standard steel stuff, this. Anything else they are claiming here? What have they got? Claiming 180 days of battery life from a full charge. No word on exactly what movement's in here though. It does say ceramic diving bezel. I was going to say it does look like ceramic. Got an unusual surround to it. And yeah, they're saying 316L stainless steel case, which I think it probably is. It's remarkably hefty. The strap looks extremely childish. That's the best way of putting that one. Straight up looks like a kid's watch. Probably could do with being changed. As for quality, it's not awful. I mean, certainly not for the price. Probably equivalent to something like the Duro, but just looks worse. I mean, the whole thing feels pretty hefty. I'm assuming this is some sort of Chinese solar movement, because I can't remember many solar watches with the more renowned movements inside feeling quite this heavy. As for measurements, again, because it's got a bit of a notch, it's hard to measure. It says here 46.5, so yeah, quite wide. Very short lug-tug in comparison, 51, and it is thick with that crystal, 15.9 millimeters. What crystal is this? Do they even say? So yeah, they're not telling me here what crystal this is, but they're saying that it's got under 128 megabytes of ROM. And also on the web listing on one section, it says only 100 meter water resistance. So, I mean, I don't know what to believe at this point. But yeah, we'll do the full testing. I doubt that is sapphire. Looks like mineral to me. Yeah, it feels like mineral too. It's got that slight bluish hue from the side, that bluey green hue. But yeah, there's your North Edge Triton. You know, fairly impressive again for the money, to be fair. It's hard to know how much you can complain when you're spending 40 quid on a watch, but we do have one final option here as well. What was this one again? Aha! Now this is the one that potentially looked the coolest, and it's from one of my little favourite brands, Mercor. Now this was definitely the most original looking of this batch, I would say. And this cost me £108.99, but I have seen it cheaper than that. I've seen it, I'm sure, for in the 90s at one point. Now let's see how this compares. I've looked at many Mercor watches in the past, and most are pretty good. This one is probably my number one AliExpress brand overall, just because the watches are quite low priced. And I have also unboxed one of their other dive watches, which was also original, but this one really looked unlike anything else. I think the closest thing I've seen to this probably something like a Vostok watch, and right, it comes in a completely different container to normal as well. I'm used to this kind of like red packaging, but no, they have gone full military on us this time. Now, the only other thing I'm aware of that does vary from most listings is the strap. They messaged me on AliExpress and said, look, we're going to have to ship you with a slightly different strap because we've ran out of the other type of strap. Although, to be fair, they look extremely similar. This one here just looks a little bit lighter in tone from the one in the pictures, but arguably matches those markers better. It also looks maybe a little bit smaller than I was expecting. Yeah, definitely looks smaller, which is good. Excited to try something a bit different. It was always one of the big challenges with the Duro is the old size, because it's not the smallest watch in the world by any stretch, and it can be quite limiting. Whereas this offers something completely different form factor, and yeah, quite different dial as well. Now, this one does have one shortcoming, and that is the water resistance isn't very good. And you'll find that a lot of the time on these manual wound watches. They tend not to have the best water resistance. Now, those other divers I looked at, they had, I think it was 5 bar. This one does advertise 10 bar, which is probably enough for most scenarios, I'd say. But because it's hand wound, it doesn't have a screw down crown, which is typical, really. And as such, I'm guessing they just can't quite so easily get that high water resistance. But I think for most people, 10 bar is like the magic number, really. If it can clear that, it's probably good enough. Does have a screwed case back at least. It's also got one heck of a fixed sticker there. There we go. And yeah, it just has this really unique design. I think that looks quite cool. Really funky. Never seen anything quite like that. And it's got that compression diver style internal bezel here. And that feels far better. I mean, you can probably see how much more responsive this one is than that previous one. A really cool little thing, this. Strap itself, I could take it or leave it, really. I mean, fabric straps are probably not the best option for a dive watch. Interested to see exactly what size this is, because previous Merkur watches sure do look bigger than this. But no, it is 38mm still. Maybe it's just my perspective being warped by the larger dive watches in general. 44.8mm lug to lug, and thickness with a domed crystal there. 13.4. If you discount the domed crystal, it's actually quite thin. Somewhere in the ballpark of about 10mm. Again, case finishing is fairly good. I'd say the case finishing's been quite consistent across all these 5, to be honest. Not a great deal to separate them. Just see if it says what movement's inside these. Yeah, it just says here MO1D, which is actually an in-house manufactured Chinese standard movement. So Merkur actually makes the movements inside these. Is a very dated design, admittedly, but it's still a potential cool extra value add. So yeah, I'll link that one also down below, but keen to hear which you think is your favourite out of all of these, because perhaps we've got some bargains in here. I'll definitely keep you up to date. Keep your eyes out for that upcoming video on Ben's Watch Club. As for which are my favourites out of these, I think maybe design-wise, I like the look of the Merkur the best. I think my least favourite, despite being pretty good value materially, is the North Edge. Just looks a bit kind of clumsy, I think. Yeah, we'll see how they stack up to the Casio Duro, in that full video.